I'm glad that we can gather together to hear from the public this evening. Earlier tonight, we received a potential threat to City Hall. Employees were immediately evaluated and the building has been cleared. I want to thank our public safety community, the Lynchburg Police Department, the Lynchburg Fire Department, Lynchburg Sheriff's Office, Virginia State Police, and Liberty University. We take this very seriously and have done everything we can do to protect the safety of our employees and our citizens. Please join me in thanking the men and women that work to keep us all safe. I'd also like to note that Councilwoman Dolan regretfully is not here tonight. She wanted me to inform you all that she is sick with COVID, but is watching from home, and thanks to all the citizens that she represents for being here tonight and expressing your voice. On behalf of Lynchburg City Council, we welcome you to the public hearings on the proposed real property tax, the fiscal year 2024 water and sewer volume rates, sewer only rate and stormwater fee, and the proposed fiscal year 2024 operating budget and fiscal year 2024 to 2028 capital improvement program. Interested persons who wish to speak at this public hearing will be given an opportunity to be heard, and each speaker will be allowed a limited time to offer input. Time limitations will be observed. Rules of procedure for all three public hearings. Speakers will be recognized in order in which they signed up to speak. Please restate your name and give your locality of residence. An individual may speak for up to 3 minutes. A group representative may speak for up to 5 minutes. A group shall have only one representative. Once the list has been exhausted, I will then open the floor for any individual who wishes to speak that has not previously signed up. The purpose of tonight's meeting will be to garner input from the public on the topics at hand, and we will make available every opportunity to do so. Citizens often express conflicting and diverse positions regarding specific issues under consideration. To encourage citizen participation and to avoid intimidation to persons who may express sometimes unpopular opinions, applause, cheers, or jeers from the audience are not permitted. When appearing before City Council, citizens may not engage in behavior that intimidates or insults others, engage in disruptive behavior, use profanity or vulgar language, promote private business ventures, or campaign for office. Agenda item number 1, public hearing on the proposed real property tax. Speakers will be recognized in the order in which they signed up to speak.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Our first speaker for tonight is Wayne Cravey, followed by Andrea Hart, and then Sheriff Don Sloan.
Good evening.
I'm Wayne Cravey. I'm here to speak to you. I am a small business owner here. I also work full-time. I'm aware that we have to pay taxes. We're citizens. We know we get some services. But I recently received an estimate on my house, where my house has gone up almost 85% in value in 2 years. I don't know how that's affected other people here, but I will speak for me. I am looking to leave the city of Lynchburg and take my business with me if this goes through. That's not a threat. That is me trying to look out for my business and my finances. I work here in the city full-time. I provide services to the city. I'm not naming the company I work for. Some people know who I work for, but I'm also letting you know I am aware of my neighbors who are in their 80s, who are living on a very fixed income, who have been in those homes for many, many years. So I challenge you, think about the people in your life that are in their 80s or senior citizens who have been in their home for years before you go forward with this. Think about how that's going to impact them and their families. Think about the opportunity you have here. Some of y'all were just recently elected. Think about what changes you can make to help these folks, because I'm assuring you right now, some of them can't move, and they're going to lose the homes they've been in forever. And maybe that's okay with y'all, That's not okay with me. I've already watched 4 of my neighbors right around my house pack up and leave. I take my business with me, my customers, they're gonna have to find somebody else. But the people that work for me, they're gonna have to find jobs elsewhere because I'm not taking them with me. So I'm just letting you know, this is gonna impact a lot of people, and it's gonna impact this city. You're gonna start seeing people pack up and leave. You're gonna see businesses pack up and leave. And then think about this, election time's coming. You're gonna all be up for election again. And we're gonna remember this, those of us that are still here. The decision is yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea Hart, followed by Sheriff Don Sloan, followed by Stacy Link.
Good evening. Andrea Hurt and I reside in Ward 2. A new day, a new way should be the new mantra for Lynchburg. Having lived in the Washington, D.C. area for 40 years, I'm very familiar with bureaucracies and politics. Lynchburg is just a microcosm, a smaller version of D.C. But as a smaller city, we the citizens have a more direct way of impacting the outcome for the residents. As they say, all politics are local. We as a culture must find a new way to govern ourselves. We the people must now take back our culture, promote accountability, take responsibility for ourselves, and rely less on the government. The Founding Fathers never intended for us to live under this fiscal and social tyranny. They knew this enslavement by the government was possible only if we were not vigilant. We cannot afford to feed this monster of tax and spend without accountability. For example, for 6 years, the road in front of my house has not been repaired or repaved despite numerous complaints. Almost sprained my ankle in a pothole. Will it take a lawsuit against the city to get the government to adequately maintain the infrastructure? And this is just one of many failings that I could mention. However, I don't want to focus just on failings, because I'm a solutions kind of gal. Being an optimist at heart and believing in the courage and resourcefulness of the American people. Like most people, I've had to find ways to cut costs and at the same time to not severely impact my quality of life. I have had to distinguish between wants and needs. It is time for our governments to do the same. I'm offering a suggestion to make this decision to reduce taxes and budgets more palatable. Americans can be very creative and inventive, especially when backed into a corner. Are we not already in a corner? Banks failing, Federal Reserve printing money, out of control inflation, inferior education, growing crime, etc. Continuing down this path will ultimately not end well, so now I suggest another path. Tap into this creative ability, challenge the bureaucrats and the citizens to come up with creative and out-of-the-box ways to save money, not to just keep throwing money in every issue. Being a sailor, it's time for all hands on deck, regardless of our political positions. In these challenging and unprecedented times, we do not know what the future will bring. We must take proactive moves together to conserve our resources, work together in community, and come up with creative solutions to the challenges we face. I implore you to pass the reduced taxes for the citizens of Lynchburg. By the way, an idea that many of you ran on. Please embrace a new day, a new way for an exciting, healthy, and prosperous Lynchburg. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheriff Don Sloan, representing the Lynchburg Sheriff's Office, followed by Stacy Link, then Marty Kirsch.
Sheriff Don Sloan, representing Lynchburg Sheriff's Office. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, distinguished members of Lynchburg City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the critical needs of the Lynchburg Sheriff's Office. I am honored to stand before you tonight as your sheriff, and I'm thankful for the opportunity God has given me to serve my friends and neighbors here in Lynchburg. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens, I'm here tonight to appeal to City Council and to all citizens of Lynchburg to fully fund all our public safety as originally submitted in the budget by City Manager Benda. I am begging you to fully fund the police department, the fire department, our 911 dispatchers, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, the Lynchburg Sheriff's Office, your public safety servants, for the safety of our community and especially our children, our greatest resource and our city's future. For without a fully funded public safety service, we are choosing to invite chaos and continued criminal activity into our community. I too support property tax relief, but not at the expense of the safety of my children or your children. Public safety must be funded first, and then whatever remains be refunded to our property owners. The Lynchburg Sheriff's Office is here to support the protection of our community and the safety of our children. Ladies and gentlemen, evil is active in our world, and even right here in Lynchburg. Recently, a 16-year-old man was gunned down in broad daylight while driving on our city streets. We have also seen the atrocities of evil in Nashville and other neighboring communities near and far where innocent children and adults are targeted. I am pleading with you and with every citizen of Lynchburg to stand with your Lynchburg public safety. Please do not defund us. Please support and invest in us for the safety of our children who are our future. God has called you and each of us who are in leadership as ministers of God for good to our community to stand in righteousness and to stand against evil, holding it accountable, protecting the innocent, as Romans chapter 13 tells us. The Lynchburg Sheriff's Office has three main responsibilities of courthouse and courtroom security: the service of civil process and the transportation of prisoners and mental commissions by court order. The Lynchburg Sheriff's Office currently has 19 full-time sworn deputy positions, including me. And this is 7 full-time sworn positions below staffing levels in 2002, some 20 years ago. This is due to the state's terrible, outdated staffing standards. In 2022, these full-time deputy sheriffs served over 65,000 court papers in the city of Lynchburg, handled 335 prisoner transports throughout the Commonwealth, with 65% of our full-time staff daily assigned to 6 active courtrooms in our 3 courthouse facilities. Since June of 2022, we have received 28 court alerts requiring additional uniformed personnel for court proceedings either before, during, or after court. In 2022, 2 Lynchburg Sheriff's Office deputies were physically attacked and assaulted by individuals in our court facilities. In 2022, our part-time deputies secured 4 security checkpoint entrances to our courthouse facilities, preventing over 1,800 items of concern from entering these facilities. 23 of these items were handguns. 908 were knives, with over 177,000 visitors or visits passing through our security checkpoints, accessing the Lynchburg judicial facilities. In 2022, the Sheriff's Office assisted the Lynchburg Police Department with 86 temporary detention order transports to mental health facilities throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, allowing 172 police officers to remain in Lynchburg policing our streets. As a homeowner, I support property tax relief, but not at the expense of public safety and the safety of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Sloan.
So sorry. Stacy Link, followed by Marty Kirsch, then Jack Whistler.
Good evening. I am Stacy Link, taxpayer, registered voter. I live in Ward 4. Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and everybody here tonight, what a time we have had to visit with one another and to be neighbors. I, in all honesty, have enjoyed some of what's taken place tonight. That's just me. Being able to be face to face, to say, hi, how are you, and to have someone answer honestly, and to be involved in one another's lives. Those of us who are in Ward 4, it's not what you would consider a really affluent neighborhood. We don't have the $1 million houses. And even so, you know, I received my assessment and the value, it's gone up. And so it seems like maybe there's a little something that's going on where you say, oh, we'll knock a few pennies off of the tax, but we're going to make your house be worth a whole lot more. So where is the balance in all of that? Now, it's come to my attention that 4 of our members of City Council have taken time to do the research and to do the math and to come up with a plan, not only with this is how we should assess, this is a tax rate that would do what it needs to do, and then with this money, this is where this money is going to go, into public safety and these other things that we're here to talk about tonight. So if these individuals have taken time to come up with a plan, and they didn't just go about their merry way doing all of these other things, but they've actually done some work here and are really invested in coming up with something that's not just good for them, it's not just to make them look good when it comes time to vote in November, but it's a plan for all of us and for all the citizens of Lynchburg. And I think that we need to find a way to come to a meeting of the minds, to find a middle ground between the city council and the city manager, and to make this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Kirsch, followed by Jack Whistler, and then Steve Troxel.
It's a pleasure being in front of you again. Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, I think you remember me. I'm representing, by the way, the Villas of Stone Mill. I would appreciate that 5-minute talk time, please. We spoke, and I hope you remember a few of the things that I mentioned about the Villas at Stone Mill. Some of the things I didn't mention were that there are 30 units occupied by single and widowed women, 5 units occupied by men, widowers, single, 27 units by couples. Ages, and I told you, 65 to 90s, many on limited fixed incomes. This is just now about the villas, because I know we can't be separated from the city of Lynchburg. It's about all homeowners. It's about every homeowner, building an apartment, homeowners, renters, retailers, and all services, including the food industry in the city, that will all be affected by these higher tax rates. No question about it. Costs will go up, so the average person going out for dinner or renting an apartment, we know, and the people that are living in these apartments, the prices and costs will be going up. Again, I said, please think about when discussing the taxes that as they were presented. I also think about things, how we can increase our tax revenues. I haven't, and I don't remember any major company coming in to Lynchburg City in the last couple of years, a few years. We have to start looking for people, major companies, okay, to come to Lynchburg, and with a higher tax rates than all the surrounding communities. If I was a company owner, I would think twice about coming into Lynchburg. You have people like Costco, who would be a great addition. Okay, they need 16 acres. Okay, and if we invite them and give them tax breaks, the money that and taxes that they would bring in, I would think would offset any tax breaks we give them to come to the city. And again, they do. I looked into this many years ago. They need 16 acres. Excuse me. They also would bring in people from all around, from Bedford, Amherst, all over. Okay, this is something that the closest one is like 60 miles away. We have to again invite and get more industry and more people like this into the city to help us with our taxes. I also mentioned at one time recycling. I know it's a pain in the neck for most of us, but why are we sending all our recyclables to the dump? Why shouldn't we be selling our recyclables? Now, I know there's cost involved, you know, as far as picking up and all that. And if the things are right, I know if we have somebody planning this and looking into it, we can do that. Raise the cigarette tax. I don't know if we can do that as a city or if that has to be done state. But there's so many other ways that we should be looking to raise taxes to help us, the homeowners, the business owners, all the people in this city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jack Whistler, followed by Steve Troxel, and then this looks like CJ Jordan. Please correct me if I'm wrong, though.
Hi, I'm Jack Whistler. I'm a homeowner in the Stone Mill Villas, a community of almost all seniors. And I wanted to see the impact of the new assessments on our properties. I took 4 sample properties using the city assessment data to see the average percentage of tax increase and the average dollar amount of that tax at the $1.11 rate per hundred. Averaging those 4 properties, the average tax increase was 38%, with an average additional tax dollar increase to the property owner of $74 a month. I also used other tax rates per hundred. At the $1.05 rate, the tax increase was 30%, with a dollar tax increase of $59 per month. At 95%, it was 18. At 95 cents per hundred, it was 18%, with an increase of $35 a month. The equalizer rate is stated to be 92 cents per hundred. Due to our high assessments, even at 90 cents per hundred, we have an 11.5% tax increase, translating to $23 per month. Obviously, large increases are hard to sustain for seniors on fixed incomes. I recognize the city has many urgent priorities and, of course, want to do my own part. We all want to do our part. But resources can only go so far. You know, Social Security went up 8%. You can get a CD now for 5%. It doesn't come close to those percentages I was just talking about. So I respectfully request the council to please consider a tax rate that would bring the property taxes closer to what people pay now. I feel that would be most helpful to the residents of Stone Mill Villas and the city of Lynchburg. I think you might have a copy of the chart that I had made up. Thank you very much for a chance to talk to you.
Steve Troxel, followed by CJ Jordan, followed by Joshua Pratt.
I'm Steve Troxel. I'm from Ward 4. This book is called Economics in One Lesson by Harry Hazlitt. I recommend it to you. It was written 75 years ago. It's still true today. I'm going to read one line. The art of economics consists in looking not merely at the immediate, but at the longer effects of any act or policy. It consists in tracing the consequences of that policy not merely for one group, but for all groups. I think we've had some secondary effects from the tax rates that we've had with the increases in our assessments over the past number of years, and some of them are not very pretty. Now, if we don't support public service, public safety, like we need to, there are some serious secondary effects. If we don't reduce the tax rate to match the increased assessment, which, by the way, is state mandated, so we don't have a choice, it has to go up. But if we don't reduce the burden on the taxpayers' pocketbooks, that's going to have some severe secondary impacts. And they're not going to be pretty. You're going to lose businesses, you're going to lose citizens, you're going to lose quality of life. Now, I think this government should do what we citizens have to do. Cut corners where you have to so that you live within your means. I mean, if I kept spending like I wanted to spend with the income that I've got, I would be so far in debt I'd never get out. Our federal government is an example of that. This city doesn't need to do that. We need to reduce the rate so that it would be even with what we were paying 2 years ago, before the last time it didn't get equalized. We need to support our public safety, and we need to take the fat out of the other places in the city. There are other ways to do what we're doing, public-private partnerships, for example. It's just a case of, you got to do what we have to do. And you guys need to make the priorities about what you're going to spend it on. Public safety first, tax reduction, and then let the rest of it fall where it will. Thank you.
Thank you.
CJ Jordan, followed by Joshua Pratt, followed by Greg Lester.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and distinguished members of City Council. My name is CJ Jordan, and I'm a resident of Lynchburg. 6:05 p.m. 55 years ago, Dr. King was assassinated, and it put our nation into chaos. Why I'm here today? Because as a Republican and Black, oftentimes my life is very complicated. Why am I here tonight? It's because no, I do not agree with what the city put forth as a tax break or tax cut, nor do I agree with what my fellow Republicans have put forth. You heard the distinguished sheriff tonight talk about public safety. Let me remind you, my uncle was one of the original people who retired off the Lynchburg Police Department with his badge. I have a cousin still on Lynchburg Police Force. I have friends who work for their sheriff. But at the end of the day, what we do have consequences. It has impact down the road on other elections. Are we going to be compassionate Republicans, conservatives, or will we be chaos conservatives and cause problems down the road? So, one, should we have an independent audit to look at each agency to where we can tighten our belt? Yes, we should. Should we be bold like President Trump and talk about, hey, can we deregulate some things? For every two, have one and reduce costs. Should we put forth and come across and look at 2% cuts in each agency, but not impact public safety? Those are things that we need to look at. Be bold, be courageous, compassionate conservatives, not chaos conservatives. Thank you.
Joshua Pratt, followed by Greg Lester, then Kurt Deemer.
Good evening, members of City Council, Madam Mayor. Mary Jane, we're praying for you, and we hope that you will recover soon. Ronald Reagan said, "Government is not the solution to our problems. Government is the problem." For the past 20 years, Lynchburg City has been run by a city council that saw taxing we the people as means for generating revenue to spend as they saw fit, not only for essentials, but for pet projects. Meetings like this one were called, and the public dialogue, The Spin, was organized by tax and spend ideologues who stuffed chambers with voices that appealed to emotions to justify higher spending based on perceived needs in the community, when the reality is it was only wants. Therefore, we've had a city government where taxes were too high, the government was too large, the city council was spending too much, like a drunken housewife with her husband's credit card. So we, the people, spoke up in 2022, and we fired 3 incumbents. Now, I'm a political hack. That's a very rare thing in the political history, for 3 incumbents to be terminated with such zeal. But it's happening all across the country, in counties and in cities, because the people are fed up with tax and spend ideology. Therefore, we hired new people who made us promises for a new direction. We want a renewed city government that provides essential services and acts responsible with the widow's might. Your job is to lead the proper elements of government to act on the necessities first, public safety, and then the priorities second, and wants and pet projects last. This proposed 2024 budget is packed with wasteful spending. It's bloated and it stinks like a dead cow in a field with vultures circling overhead. I, with others, have dissected this monstrosity of spending and found areas that we can propose that are not necessary. 89 is fine, but I'm saying 77 is heaven. You were hired to create an efficient, accountable, realistic city government that provides services to the people without wasteful spending. I therefore propose 3 things immediately. A citywide hiring freeze, except for sworn police officers, sworn fire personnel, and Lincom. Number 2, establish an office of an inspector general. And 3, a complete forensic audit of every department by an auditor general to root out wasteful spending and hold accountable department managers for their budget requests. Lastly, City Council, please set the rate at 77. You can do this, and tell this man to do his job. City manager, stop politicking, go sharpen your pencil, and do your job.
Greg Lester, followed by Kurt Deemer, then David Ream.
Just want to remind that all comments need to be directed at council, not staff. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Lester.
Good evening. My name is Greg Lester. I'm a city resident. I'm here this evening to request tax relief. Our city is sitting on a significant surplus from previous years of collecting more than enough taxes over its budget. It's time to at least equalize the real estate tax. The combination of all the other taxes collected by the city will still allow the city budget to grow an extra 5.5% this year. In our family, we don't say, what do we want to do? What do we want to spend our money on this month or this year? All of our families are like that. No, we say, here's our monthly income. These are our must-pay expenses. So at that point, we pay all of those things first, and then whatever's left over, we prioritize towards the things that we would like to have or things that we would want to do. The city needs to take more of that approach, set a budget based on a fair tax rate to its citizens, and then work within the budget, prioritizing its obligations to the city and to the citizens' needs. An alternative method to raising total tax dollars is for the city to grow its tax base. Making the tax rate lower invites businesses and families to locate here, thereby raising the total revenue. Creating a favorable place to live with lower taxes, better schools that measure and publish their academic test results, and providing city safety are among the city's highest priorities. And these essential services should be funded first. However, a disproportionate and too high tax rate compared to the surrounding counties will simply push those growth opportunities away. I would propose to you, our city council members and our staff, to be proactive in the study of how to grow your tax base so you can lower our tax rate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kurt Deemer, followed by David Ream, then Dora Purvis.
Kurt Deemer, Ward 3, Lynchburg. I am here representing myself, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Been here a few times, and I don't want to take a lot of time tonight because others have a right to speak, and I've already spoken to you about this subject multiple times. If I thought for 1 minute that the proposed rate of 89 cents would impact city safety or public safety, I'm a strong proponent of our police forces, our sheriff's office. I support them as well or as good as any private citizen can. But if I thought for a second that this proposed rate and this tax relief that some are proposing would impact them, I wouldn't be up here speaking to you right now. This isn't my first rodeo. Okay, I was Steve Newman's legislative aide for 10 years. I worked for Governor Gilmer for 4 years, and I worked for the Department of Medical Assistance Services for another 2 years. And I've watched politics in my whole life. And what I've learned is, I've learned the Washington Monument play, okay? The minute you propose any tax relief, The threat is that we're going to take away the Washington Monument, and you're not going to be able to visit your beloved monument anymore. That's not true. Putting this forward is a false premise that we're going to cut city services for police officers. There's plenty of waste. I've looked at this budget. You need to look at it closely. You need to do your job and find the cuts in the bloat. I've seen it. I've seen positions out there that aren't filled and haven't been filled for a long time. I see opportunity for cuts, but it's going to take work, and it's not staff's job. Quit delegating to them, okay? They're the tail that's trying to wag the dog up here. We elected you. We're expecting you to do the work. We expect you to find the savings. We expect you to do the prioritization that we as people do in our households when we have less money and competing priorities. Politics is the allocation of scarce resources. Your job is to allocate those scarce resources wisely. So please do your job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, David Ream, then Dora Purvis, followed by Peter Seferati.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing me today. My name is David Ream. I live in Ward 3. My primary residence is the city of Lynchburg. I chose to own a home here. It's a great place to realize the American dream of home ownership. Lynchburg is at its best when it strikes a balance between country living and city living. For example, I like that there's no interstate running through my city, and yet I can catch a commuter train to DC or to Roanoke. Lynchburg blends down home and uptown. Recent data shows that Lynchburg was a great place to retire, and this vindicated my decision to move here. However, realtors explained that property tax on a home outside the city would be only about 60% of a comparable home in the city. Home ownership is central to the American dream, yet Lynchburg is becoming a city out of balance with respect to owner-occupants and renters. More rental increases the price of single-family homes. The owners of low-income housing and rental property just raise the rent and pass the cost on to renters. Since the city has an embarrassing surplus of revenue, the current tax rate of 1.11 or even 1.05 is needless. It oppresses all citizens of Lynchburg and defers the dream of home ownership. The City Council needs to act now to stop this oppression for everyone in Lynchburg and revive the American dream of home ownership. It is common sense that homeowners create a great place to live, work, and play because homeowners have a vested interest in the good of their community. First, the City Council needs to immediately lower the tax rate to, well, I wrote originally 0.89 tonight, but if we can lower it further than that, I could live with that too. I'm not afraid of less. I see this will not harm the city's revenue and aligns with the council's goals of tax relief for all citizens of Lynchburg. This increases, the increases in property assessment generates the revenue to run this city safely. Second, the council needs to prioritize its values to reflect its motto. Lynchburg, a great place to live, work, and play. High property taxes drive away people and businesses that could become valued stakeholders in our community. Get an external forensic audit to see our financial position clearly, then use the data to plan and spend efficiently according to the campaign promises that you made to the people of Lynchburg. Finally, I ask the Lynchburg City Council to decide, is Lynchburg at its best a town of renters and absentee landlords? Ever-increasing property taxes leave me skeptical about my future in Lynchburg. Make Lynchburg a great place to live, work, and play. Decide to favor the American dream of home ownership. Champion the cause of tax relief on behalf of all citizens and lower the tax rate tonight. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Dora Purvis, followed by Peter Seferati, and then Ryan Thomas.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the citizens of Lynchburg City. My name is Dora Purvis. I've been a teacher for over 30 years. I've lived and worked in many states, and I have taught in various venues. In all my years of teaching, I have never seen more money in any school system as I have seen at Lynchburg City Schools. School budgets account for 50% or over 50% of most county and city expenses. While I believe this is important to provide good salaries for our teachers, I also believe there were many programs that were unnecessary. Just to compare, Bedford County has 9,000 students enrolled, and their budget cost per student is $288,000. Lynchburg City Schools has 7,700 students enrolled, and they spend $16,000 per student. That's a difference of $13,112 per student. If we were able to cut some of that down, it would be $100 million of revenue right there for our security. And for those who don't know, Bedford County also has many Title I schools. I called Lynchburg City Schools, according to Ms. Reed, the city needs more money to provide food for those students who are going hungry. I understand that hunger has become more and more of an issue in our country due to the socialist agendas being forced upon our people. So I called Lynchburg City Schools and I asked what programs were in place for children in need of food. They told me all children throughout our district, regardless of financial need, receive free breakfasts and free lunches. That means that families who have 6- or 7-figure incomes are also eligible to receive free breakfast and free lunches. There are also many other programs in our city that also place food in the kids for backpacks and so on. One other big expense in our schools, aside from top-heavy administration, has been Chromebooks. While they have been required during the pandemic, they created none of the problems, they created more of a problem than a solution. Students use them more for playing video games at home and in class, rather than using them for actual learning. The overall test scores in the past few years prove that this was a disaster. So, why do we continue to spend with no accountability, no reasonable expectations to evaluate if what we're doing is necessary, helpful, or even destructive? Isn't that taxation without representation? So I propose to audit the school and city budgets, find programs that are not working and cut or modify them, use the $60 million surplus to beef up our law enforcement rather than to just put it towards their buildings, and cut the taxes so that we are able to, we have at very least the budget remains the same. And finally, hold city council members accountable for any lies or anything that they campaign for that they are not following through with. And if the city manager is not able to find ways to stay within the budget or reduce these taxes, then we need to find another city manager.
Peter Seferati, followed by Ryan Thomas, then Benjamin Anderson.
Good evening, folks, staff. Thanks for your services. Thanks for the opportunity to express myself about this important topic. I don't complain when my house goes up in value. I think it makes me feel really good. I'm working on fixing it up, and that means people appreciate what I'm doing. That should be a good thing. It shouldn't be something that people don't want to happen. I used to live in California. Property values would go up $100,000 a year. But we had Proposition 13 because the people there finally got fed up with taxes going up and people who are retired and have fixed incomes losing their houses and having to move to who knows where because they couldn't afford the property taxes on their houses. Don't want to see that happen here. So my question is, what's the city government going to do when we have another great recession, when the value of the dollar goes down, the value of property goes down? Could happen again. It happened just a few years ago. It could totally happen again if you look around the economic degradation that's happening in this country. it's not just going to stay on the Washington level, it's going to hit all of us. So what are you going to do? If property values go down, what are you going to do? Are you going to raise the tax rate? Property values go down like 40%. You're going to raise tax rate 60% to make up the difference, to keep the train running down the track? Totally unsustainable. It's time for the, it's just like other people are saying, it's time for the city council or somebody to take a look at every line item in the budget and prioritize it. And hopefully you're going to, like the sheriff said, hopefully the people who provide public safety are going to be someplace near the top, and then a rational school system is going to be in there to train young people to be our next citizens. But there's a lot of stuff that should be prioritized underneath that. I don't know what that sound means, if it's supposed to mean something. But it's this point everybody else is making. You can't just say, we can't lower the tax rate because then it's going to jeopardize our law enforcement and our city attorneys expanding their departments to provide the services that we need. That's not, if the tax rate goes down, that's the last thing that should be cut. That should have a high enough priority so that stays in the budget. It's somebody's job, hopefully it's, you know, this group here, to take a look at what else is in that budget that could be cut down. I think that the city should be going back to the 2022 budget as their base, and not last year, not the current year's fiscal budget as their base to build from. I think last year was, or this current fiscal year is an anomaly, and I think it makes a lot more sense to do that. I mean, somebody's got to have some common sense about what's going on here with tax and spending, because this is unsustainable. A lot of people like to talk about sustainability. It's time to have financial sustainability. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Ryan Thomas, followed by Benjamin Anderson, and then Veronica Braxton.
Good evening. I'm Ryan. A lot of really good points have already been made, and I was actually going to speak on most of those, so I've kind of been changing it up on the fly. But I wanted to lead off with a point that Jonah Goldberg makes in Suicide of the West, which is a brilliant work of modern political philosophy, if you haven't read it. And one of the points that he makes is that the prime directive of any government agency is to further its own existence. It is to continue to exist. There's a lot of implications to unpack there. Suffice it to say that a bureaucrat will go to extraordinary lengths. They will expend extraordinary amounts of energy to convince you why the service that they provide, which is funded with taxpayer dollars, is necessary. Now I want to pivot. I work in the private sector. I haven't had a pay raise in 2 years because of the government reactions to COVID as well as inflation. My company is experiencing difficult times. We've had to cut, in fact, some of my coworkers. I don't see why public servants should be immune to what the private sector always has to deal with. It sucks, but hey, guess what? That's life. So yeah, we need to cut back. And then the last point that I want to make, I'm just going to make this quick. Public safety is important. Obviously, you need a city where businesses want to do business, where they feel safe to do so, but I think that we also need to encourage, to create a culture that encourages people to take responsibility for their own safety. Because no offense to anybody in this room, but I am perfectly capable of protecting my own children. And I think that we need to promote taking responsibility for our own safety to make the jobs of our public safety employees easier. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Benjamin Anderson. I live in the Windhurst area, and I was drawn here to Lynchburg originally by Liberty University, like many people who come, and I said, I'll never want to live here. It's not going to happen. Well, I've fallen in love with this city, and happens to be where my parents also fell in love, and we bought 3 properties, so I manage rental properties here. And there's many homeowners here right now who are talking about real estate tax, but I want to point out tenants. You know, raising the tax rate will raise it for landlords, and landlords in return will, of course, have to pass it on. And it's not only the real estate tax that's being added. Our insurance went up this year. Landscaping went up. All of the maintenance costs, of course, went up. And so as a city, we need to be aware and think about tenants and the homeowners as well. Another thing is I came from Texas, Austin, Texas, and last year the home that I lived in and grew up in went up 40% in assessed value. However, because our local legislator there will not allow property tax any higher than 10%, there was a cutoff, and that's something I propose also to be looked into or to vote on. Is we should have a cutoff point where there's a certain point that is cut off where we can't go over that in the real estate tax. Thank you.
Braxton, followed by Don Good, then Jim Whitaker.
Hi. I'm allowed to read a statement. Am I allowed to read a statement from a constituent who couldn't stay? Is that okay? Is that okay? I mean, it's okay if it's part of my time. I just want to ask. Okay. Okay, that's fine. George Loper. So I'm reading George's text, okay? My name is George Loper, and my wife and I live in Windsor Hills, Lynchburg. As voters, we thank you for allowing your constituents to freely voice their concerns. We are in strong opposition to any increase in city, school, personal property, and real estate taxes. Retirees especially struggle with inflation and increasing prices. If the bathtub is full, why add more water to it? If indeed there is a surplus, instead of raising rates and taxes, please consider, like our governor is doing, at least giving some back to the taxpayers. And here's a crazy idea, as I lost my place. Here's a crazy idea, at least, but what if some senior homeowners were exempt from paying taxes on the home they've worked their whole lives to afford? Thank you for your respectful consideration. So that's Mr. Loper's statement. And then from Veronica, I want to say thank you, Sheriff Sloan, for speaking, and thank you, Chief Zudema and Commonwealth Attorney Bethany, for all that you do for our city and keeping us safe and prosecuting. And I certainly hope that I am in full support of public safety, and my hope is that even with a rate reduction to at least 89 cents, we can do as our citizens have to do when times are tough. We have to just look at our household budgets, and we have to decide what our priorities are. We can't maybe go and spend on the fun things. Maybe we have to cut our vacations. We have to make a priority list and spend on what's necessary. Public safety is definitely necessary. And we certainly see an increase in crime, but it does go hand in hand as well, because as we know that when times are tight and our citizens are having to make tough decisions because their paychecks are not making it to the next paycheck, that is when crime is likely to increase. Thank you.
Don Good, followed by Jim Whitaker, and then Tim Decker.
Good evening. I live in Ward 1. All right, there's no more discussion needed, no more hand wringing. We had a $43 million surplus in 2022 fiscal year. Just lower the tax rate to 75 cents. This is supposed to be government by the people, for the people. Like Reagan said, government is the problem, it's not the solution. There's plenty of waste in city budget. As an example, I ran for council 10 years ago. I was the first one to push to raise public safety salaries for fire and police, sheriff's department, to exceed the local area like Danville and Roanoke and all that, about 12 years ago. But there's always waste in city government, always. For example, right now, I think the white police cars with the blue and red lettering is great. It's beautiful, looks great. Right now, we're painting cars black and white. What a stupid waste. What a waste. Put your money into your police officers, into training. Don't waste it on stuff like that. It costs the city, from what I've gathered, starting police officers about $50,000. So you figure an experienced officer with benefits and that, it's going to cost the city about $75,000 to $100,000 for fire and police, somewhere in that range for each officer. So if you were needing 100 officers, it cost you about $10 million. We have so much waste of money already. Just lower the taxes. By lowering the taxes, we're not going to endanger the city or public safety. There's so much waste. 4 years ago, Stephanie, you ran as loving Lynchburg and as a conservative. Step up to the plate, make the hard choices, vote with your Republican friends. Sterling, you say you care so much about the poor people in Ward 3. Step up to the plate, help them out, and save them money. Thanks. Have a good day.
Jim Whitaker, followed by Tim Decker, and then Sarah Beck.
Good evening. I look at this group of people right here. All of you are my friends. Okay? I pray for you on a regular basis. By the way, I'm Jim Whitaker, former mayor of Lynchburg. Served on the city council for 8 years, vice mayor from 1992 to 1994, mayor from 1994 to 1998. I've been where you are. Leadership is not easy, but it's necessary. While mayor, our city council spent a lot of quality time developing, approving, and adopting a long-range city council vision and mission for the city. That document was not just a vision statement that sounded good on paper, but it was very detailed as to how we were going to accomplish that vision by the year 2020. We had the buy-in of the city manager and every department head in the city government. I am proud to say that our bipartisan vision changed the way everyone employed by the city approached governance. I'm also proud to say that Lynchburg is a different place now than it was in 1992 as a result of that city council and several to follow working together with city staff and the citizens of our great city. We laid the foundation for the development of downtown Lynchburg as well as other major developments. I called the city clerk's office today to request a copy of the current city council vision, and much to my disappointment, there is not one. Where's the vision? Where's the beef? Okay. I was told that there was no such document, but a motto, a great place to live and work and play. Where is the detailed vision and mission from our city council that gives direction as to how that statement will become a reality? In other words, we need direction. This gentleman needs direction from city council. I feel that once city council gets together and acts together and works together instead of fighting like stepchildren, then reaching an agreement on the various tax rates will be much easier. As the volunteer chaplain for the city of Lynchburg, for the LPD, I am here to fully support our law enforcement, our public safety, our sheriff's department. What happened here tonight is a good example as to why they need your support.
Thank you.
I'm here to help you. If you want to develop a vision, I'll volunteer to help you.
Thank you so much.
Tim Decker, followed by Sarah Beck, then Gage McAngus.
I'm Tim Decker. I live on Liggett's Road. We've been here since 1995. We love Lynchburg. I've raised 4 children here. I'm a one-income family. My wife is not able to work because of health issues. She called me here about a month ago, started crying. She said, "Tim, I don't know how we're going to stay here. The tax assessment just raised our taxes $60,000 on our property. That's 47% increase. She went looking, and in our neighborhood, there were several houses, like 5 or 6 houses, that people overpaid. And I know these people because most of them I met. I'm the neighborhood watch coordinator for my neighborhood. I know who they are and where they come from. Most of them are from states where they can buy these $300,000 houses and $500,000 houses. And they're paying $60,000 and $100,000 over what the assessed value is. But on July 1st, my property goes up $60,000. That's $56 per month in an increase. That's not including what the utilities are going to go up. My health insurance has gone up. Everything's gone up, groceries. I can't sustain this. As the first speaker said tonight, I'm going to have to move out of Lynchburg because I can't stay here. I'm not going to be able to afford to stay here unless you do something about the tax rate and lower the tax rate. I love Lynchburg. I moved here. I met my wife here. I don't want to move out, but I will if I have to. Thank you.
Sarah Beck, followed by Gage McGangus, then Chris Quigg.
Hello, good evening. Thank you all for allowing us the opportunity to speak. My name is Sarah Beck, and I am a Lynchburg City Schools parent, and I would love to be the first one to talk about the students here in Lynchburg today. I also have a PhD from Vanderbilt University in developmental psychology, and I'm a local professor. I stand before you today to express my wish that City Council choose not to reduce the property tax at the expense of city services that support the needs of children in Lynchburg City Schools. Every cent of tax rate reduction that the council approves, the net revenue available for the budget decreases by $750,000. In the current proposal, which brings the rate down from 111 to 105, a family with $200,000 of real estate will save $200. And this council wants to reduce that rate even further. If it were reduced to 89 cents, as has been discussed, we would have $16.5 million less to spend on services citywide, including schools and our children. Councilman Helgeson stated at last week's meeting that our expenditures per student are already too high, and that rather than more money, teachers just need to know council has their backs. Respectfully, how could they possibly feel like the city has their backs when they do not have basic classroom supplies? I have a 2nd grader and a 4th grader in 2 different local elementary schools. This week, both of my children's teachers requested supplies from parents to make it through the last 10 weeks of school. The things they need include Lysol wipes, paper towels, headphones, glue sticks, pencils, Kleenex, and snacks. I'm a frequent visitor to these classrooms, and no one who has spent any time in these classrooms would dare to claim that our teachers have everything they need to support students. Whatever their budget is, it's not enough. Our teachers, staff, and administrators are doing so much with so little, and yet this council proposes to cut millions in revenue that will undoubtedly affect the LCS budget for the sake of a performative tax cut to benefit city homeowners who, by definition, are among our city's most financially stable and most privileged. Superintendent Edwards spoke at last week's meeting in support of raising wages for all school staff and in support of raising starting teacher salaries to compete with the nationwide teacher shortage. As someone who is fortunate enough to be a homeowner in Lynchburg, let me be clear. My priority is not to save a few $100s on my property taxes. My priority is excellent public schools. Please keep our tax rate at 111 and invest aggressively in our public schools, in our educators, and in our children. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Gage McGangus, followed by Chris Quigg, then Karen Quigg.
Good evening, Mayor Reed, Vice Mayor Feraldi, distinguished members of City Council. My name is Gage McGangus, and I'm from Ward 1. Over my 13 years in public education, I've served proudly as both a classroom teacher and an administrator, and I've earned the degrees of Master of Arts in Teaching, Education Specialist in School Leadership, and received countless hours of training in professional development and curriculum, instruction, assessment, feedback, data analysis, standards, literacy, engagement, flipped classrooms, problem-based learning, project-based learning, rigor, STEM, STEAM, culturally responsive teaching, and social-emotional learning, just to name a few. While I will never know all there is to know, there are a few things of which I'm quite certain when it comes to the operation of public schools. One is that unless you have worked in a public school, you likely have only a skewed or limited perspective of how they operate and what they need to be successful. Merely having been a student is not enough. They can be managed both well and poorly, but they cannot be simply run like a business. The capital is human lives. They are inherently complex and dynamic, and therefore the rules of business just simply do not always apply. Thankfully, however, there are trained professionals who are equipped for this important task. So the second thing of which I'm quite certain is that we have a superintendent who not only knows how to run a school, but an entire division. She's an expert in her field and has the support of a school board and departmental experts with whom she consults. And most importantly, she maintains a deep connection with and understanding of the young people that she's been charged to serve. Her recommendations are data-based, intentional, and fiscally responsible. As city leaders, I believe you should do what all great leaders do: seek to understand the issue from those with training and with experience. A third thing of which I'm quite certain is that the teachers are essential to the strength of our local economy, but they are significantly undervalued and overworked, more so than ever in the wake of a global pandemic. Finally, a fourth thing of which I'm quite certain is that the great leaders go to where the work is happening. So I'll leave you with a clear call to action. If you haven't already done so, I encourage you to serve as a substitute in one of our fine public schools for a day or two. Not only will you have a greater appreciation for the transformative teaching and learning that is taking place every day in our schools, despite a massively underfunded budget, but you will also understand that in reality, our teachers and support staff deserve far greater than what is being recommended by the superintendent and the school board. Thank you so much for your time and for your service.
Chris Quigg, followed by Karen Quigg, then Gail Goldsmith.
Hello, City Council members. My name is Chris Quigg, and I've been a resident of Lynchburg for 15 years. My wife and I and our 5 children moved here from Connecticut. And one thing I was thankful for right off the bat was the lower real estate taxes. We were paying about twice as much in Connecticut when we moved here in 2007. Our children are now grown. Our 5 children, they're all in their 20s and 30s. 4 of them are married and they have families of their own now. And 2 have decided to also stay in Lynchburg, make this their home. And a third is planning to move back later this year. So it is a good place to live, and we're very thankful for Lynchburg for many reasons. So please stay conservative in your approach to keep Lynchburg a place people want to live and move to. It's my understanding that an 89 cents at the most rate would be sufficient to meet the needs of the city. And I agree with that. Several of you council members, and thank you for your willingness to serve, and maybe all of you, I don't know, are professing believers in Jesus, God-fearing people. So I want to encourage you, those of you who are Christ followers, to trust Him as you make this tax rate decision and possibly rebating part of the surplus as well. But Philippians 4:19 says, "And my God shall supply all your need according to His riches and glory by Christ Jesus." Let's trust God to supply our need. 2 Corinthians 3:5, "Not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think of anything as being from ourselves, but our sufficiency is from God." And a final quote from the Liberty Book, and it's a chapter on taxation. It says, "If we want government that taxes us less, then we need politicians who will fight wrongful taxation wherever it is found. If we want to return to freedom, then we must elect righteous people who will take the axe to the root of unjust taxation. And I believe we've done that. We've elected some righteous people. So please do just that and do your job. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Karen Quigg, followed by Gail Goldsmith, then Zane Reynolds.
Good evening. As Scripture states, do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it's in your power to help them. Proverbs 3:27, amen. My name is Karen Elizabeth Quigg. My citizenship is in heaven, yet for now I am a citizen of Lynchburg City. As you've just heard, we moved here 15 years ago. We came here by faith, no job, put 5 kids in Christian school, and wow, we suddenly had a very tight budget. It was very different, plus we were also hit with the long-term health issues that insurance didn't take, and that added to an even tighter budget. So in our household, decisions were constantly made, reevaluated as we had to adjust to our new normal. So, just like City Council, right? You all now have a new normal. And we, the people, elected you based on your campaign promises. And I felt compelled to come here. I've never been part of anything like this. But I and we, many of us, worked hard to flip these chairs. And by God's grace, you're all sitting there. But we elected you based on your campaign promises, and one of that states a top priority, and I quote, "We oppose local tax increases, and we want to put more money back in your pocket." So there it is. That's what you said. And we, the people, elected you to lower taxes as you promised. And with that, now you get to reduce expenses. So just as all we have to do within our families, we expect you to do that as you promised for all the people in our great city here. I know you all know that we don't work for you. By God's grace, you work for us, and what a privilege. Amen. So I'm asking you to be genuine people of integrity and stand by your promises. I'm asking for the City of Lynchburg government to learn to live within its means, as we all have to, and instead of draining money out of our pockets. One thing I tell my students is do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And coming from New England, I end with my favorite QB's favorite statement, do your job. Thank you.
Gail Goldsmith, followed by Zane Reynolds, and then Jennifer Williams.
Mayor and Council, thank you. I'm here because I want to see the tax rate set at a label that is able to fund and support the city manager's budget and its investment in all of Lynchburg's citizens. Want to see this because not doing so harms me, harms members of the church that I serve, and harms the city we all love. Please don't defund us. To see a budget proposal come from members of council that betrays the best of our city, parks, schools, ability to build safe and stable housing opportunities is disappointing. It would turn over public goods to be privatized to businesses without a track record of success in our city, businesses that aren't committed to us, businesses that extract money from Lynchburg citizens. Taken at even a generous understanding of what this new budget whim reducing the rate could represent, it still fails our city. It is proposed to be good for business. It is not. This results in unemployment. It takes a stable foundation away from us, our friends, and our neighbors, many people in our city. It also broadly discourages industry. After a few recent laws in Indiana affected quality of life there, the Eli Lilly Corporation, a massive pharmaceutical company, reported that they were, for the first time ever, struggling to recruit good candidates. People were turning down relocation offers. They were not able to hire the talented staff they wanted. This would discourage industry in Lynchburg, burden the ability of creative entrepreneurs here to start small businesses, and affect our ability to retain talent. If it is proposed to be money back to our citizens, it's not significant. One calculation is $20 per month per property owner. It's the difference between the tax rate and the value. We would give this up. I would give this up and more to have our amazing park systems, great schools, expanded housing, economic development. I want 560 pages of research. I do not want 2. I'm reading a book called The Happy City, Transforming Our Lives Through Urban Design, and the author quotes a few keys to cities with a high happiness quotient. Public space for all to enjoy, increased opportunities for kids, people united for good, increased housing and employment options to keep people safe. This budget, proposed by 4 members of council, would defund these things. I'm enjoying that book, but I want to quote you another one. You could probably tell from my shirt this was coming. The Bible is a story of God's deep gospel grace for us, but it has harsh words for those that impoverish others and those that harm others' quality of life. The prophet Isaiah says this in chapter 58, "The true religious celebration, is it not to share your food with the hungry, provide the poor wanderer with shelter?" The proposed rate reduction would defund all of this, take away economic stability from our city and region, destabilize people, defund recreation, joy, play, and thriving. A big theme in the Christian faith, I think thank you. Thank you, an invitation to confession and repentance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zane Reynolds, then Jennifer Williams, followed by Jennifer Staten.
Thank you all for the ability to speak. I'm going to keep it really short, but I did notice one thing reading through the budget. In the budget, there's actually a community development performance measure. And in that, the city manager sets the ambitious target to increase average resident income by 5.5% from 23 to 24. But then, if you look at the top line expenditure numbers, you will also notice that he is increasing government by 11.2%. So, I mean, I think we can see how that's not sustainable, right? If the residents are only making 5% more, how are you going to increase government by 11% more? I would also like to include in that no sacred cows. This false dichotomy we've heard about, giving public safety exactly what they want or we're going to be less safe. I don't know. I'm not buying it. Everyone has to share in this burden. That includes finding cuts everywhere. No sacred cows. And then finally, I'm kind of upset, hearing a lot about how these tax breaks are just performative. Before me, have witnessed a lot of people who seem to be very scared about being able to afford to stay in their home. Seems a little mean to call it performative when you're looking at some people who might be choosing to pay their property taxes versus buying groceries at the end of every month. So let's just keep this in perspective. Thank you.
Jennifer Williams, Jennifer Staten, then Kim Nguyen.
Hello. My name is Jennifer Williams. I'm a resident of Ward 4. My daughter graduated from EC Glass in 2021, and my son is a current student, and I have a master's degree in education. I am hearing council members saying that Lynchburg needs to be more like the counties in terms of property tax rates. When my family moved here 5 years ago, we looked at Lynchburg and the surrounding counties. We compared tax rates and the services those taxes provided. We chose to buy a home in Lynchburg specifically because of the excellent services provided by these tax dollars. As far as I am concerned, the counties need to be more like Lynchburg. The main reason I'm here tonight concerns the proposed tax cut, or the proposed cuts to increase funding for the Lynchburg City School budget. The proposed tax rate of 89 cents will cut that funding by $900,000, and according to the April 3rd budget response, Vice Mayor Feraldi, it appears that you want to cut it by another $400,000. You recently stated that you want to prioritize staff over stuff, but you failed to specify what you meant by stuff. I agree that teachers and staff salaries desperately need to be raised, but teachers are not magic and parents are not stupid. Parents understand that teachers need stuff in order to teach effectively. They need pencils and paper to teach writing. They need manipulatives to teach young children math concepts. They need lab equipment for science experiments. They need art materials and athletic equipment. They need ovens and mixers for culinary art programs. They need sound and lighting boards for technical theater programs. I could go on, but hopefully you get the gist. I worry by stuff you may also mean things such as special education support or counseling services for students in crisis. Is this the stuff that you plan to eliminate? Maybe by stuff you mean art or music or theater or athletic programs. Maybe you mean experiential learning opportunities, career tech, or school clubs. How will eliminating this stuff help our students? I fear that you and some of your colleagues have lost the plot. Determining school budgets isn't about punishing administrators. It is about providing our children every opportunity to succeed in a world that gets more challenging each year. LCS students deserve every single cent of funding that they can possibly get. Funds which includes teacher and staff salaries, as well as funds for all the stuff I listed. Increased funding is vital because, as everyone here knows, prices for stuff only goes up. I refuse to sell out my son's future and that of other LCS students for $200 in tax breaks. Please protect Lynchburg's progress and keep the property tax rate at $1.11. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Staten, Kim Nguyen, then Ben Blanks.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Staten. First, I wanted to say that we are seeing and hearing a lot from retirees tonight, and I appreciate their ability as well as my ability as the mom of a senior in high school to stay till 10 o'clock at night and not go home and put children to bed. But please know that those parents who are in your public schools did not get to speak to you tonight. And I think it's really important that we consider that they would be the advocates for public schools rather than their own retirement funds. Anyway, my husband and I both grew up in Amherst County. We experienced Amherst County High School. It was a nice experience, but after college, when we were choosing to get married and decide where to live, we chose to live in Lynchburg City. We did that because when we were at Amherst, everything wasn't supported. It's a football town. We had great chances in college, and we appreciated that, but we knew that Lynchburg City schools and Lynchburg City was where we wanted to raise our kids. We wanted our kids to be in public schools that had amazing facilities like the theater at EC Glass, sports teams that don't even exist in the counties like lacrosse and field hockey. We wanted parks and trail systems because my husband's an avid mountain biker, and now my daughter is an avid mountain biker. We wanted the downtown scene. Somebody else said that Lynchburg City blends country living and city life perfectly, and that is absolutely true. We have lived here for almost 25 years. We've put 2 kids through Lynchburg City schools. Or almost 2 kids, one's a senior. My oldest daughter is at a Pac-12 top research college, and she would not have gotten there without all of the stuff. She survived, 5 superintendents as a class of 22, from McKendrick all the way to Dr. Edwards. That's a lot of change, and then her senior year got cut short. Without that SPED, without that theater program, without those advocates, she wouldn't have made it. My younger daughter has thrived in the ROTC program. She's headed into Virginia Tech and plans to join the Air Force after that as a commissioned officer. When you're talking about cutting stuff, you're talking about cutting those programs too. These programs change lives, and these are the reason we choose to live in the city. And my dad that said, take our free land in the county, stay here, your taxes will be lower. Guess what? Now he has to look at the response times because he's older, and he understands that his health is in jeopardy by living in the county as compared to our response times that we get in the city. And he understands that 89 cents, $1.11, that $200 really doesn't matter when it's about his health and his response time. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Kim Nguyen, followed by Ben Blanks, and then Michael Khalif. I'm sorry if that's spelled wrong.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members, I'm Kim Nguyen, and I live in Ward 4. It disturbs me that I and other Lynchburg residents are having to stand before you tonight regarding lower real estate taxes. When Stephanie Reed, Marty Mischens, and Larry Taylor won in the November elections, flipping the City Council to a Republican majority, I assumed they would all work to bring together much-needed reform, dismantling decades-old Democratic policies, replacing them with those reflecting conservative values, including a much-needed reduction in real estate taxes. Repeatedly, I've heard Mayor Reed say that the people are more concerned with rising crime than with lowering real estate taxes. She could not be more out of touch with her constituents. Of course, we care about rising crime, and we do not want to see law enforcement lose any funds at all. But inflation is skyrocketing. Everything is going up: food, housing, insurance, clothing, utilities, everything. And if Mayor Reed or anyone else on the City Council thinks that the people of Lynchburg don't care about the rise in real estate taxes, yet another financial burden, they are completely wrong. Higher taxes result in higher rent. Everyone suffers, homeowners and renters alike. The proposed so-called rate reduction of $1.05 is outrageous. With higher property assessments, this will result in an increased tax burden instead of needed tax relief. And with a city surplus of more than $40 million, this is completely unacceptable. Decades of Democratic control, no doubt, has resulted in overspending, well-padded pet projects, and general mismanagement of money, the hallmark of all Democrat-run cities. Mayor Reed, we the people who voted you and the other Republican city council members into office have the right to expect that you will now do your job, get creative, and start trimming the city budget. With higher property assessments, a reduction to 89 cents is needed to bring any tax relief at all, and we expect that at the very least, if not lower. To the city council members who are fighting for this much-needed reduction, thank you so much, and please don't back down. Thank you.
Ben Blanks, followed by Michael Khalif, and then Sarah Khalif.
Hello, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Ben Blanks. I live in the Langham Road section of Lynchburg. We definitely need to fund our police. After tonight's incident, and thank you to all the officers that watched over us tonight, we definitely need to make sure we don't have threats like this, because every day it's just... Anyway, getting to my point, I'm more concerned about, as a renter, I'm more concerned about renters and rent driving us to more homelessness and mental crisis. That's a concern I have in the community. But I really feel like that we need to have our city services. It's important to me. I don't live in the county. I live in the city. I've always lived in the city most of my life, and I like having, different ways of getting around. Buses is one of my things, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in the third public hearing. But mainly, I think the $1.05 rate may be okay, but I don't think it may go far enough. We might have to look at middle ground. I think there has to be some middle ground between the 89 cents and 105. So, but I don't want to jeopardize city services as well, because like I said, middle crisis would happen. I mean, more renters would be out on the street. I just care about this community, but I just don't want to see the bad in the community. I want to see the good in the community. Thanks.
Thank you.
Michael Khalif, Sarah Khalif, and then Charlie Hess.
Good evening. It's been a very long night, and I'm amazed that you all are still hanging in. We're hanging in with you all too, and I want to thank you guys. I know some of you for a long time, some of you for not a long time, and I know that you all really want to do the best for the city. I've had so many things going through my mind what I want to say, and I was like, I just want to thank them for serving, for what they're doing, for putting themselves out there. It's not easy. I know the voices are coming at you from every angle and every direction, and you want to do the right thing. And I hear it sounds like it's easy for us to be pitted against each other. Like, if you don't side with us, then you don't like the kids in the school and you don't want them to have pencils. And if you don't side with us, then you don't care about our what we're having to pay. And I'm like, this is not how it's supposed to be. There's got to be a better way. We care. We want to see the best. And I know you do too. And I want to encourage you guys. When you were elected to do many things, to fund the safety, to lower the taxes, to help the schools be more efficient. And that's really what I think you're all trying to do, to try to make things more efficient, to cut the waste. I'm just amazed at what you're putting into it. And I thank you for what you're doing. And that's really just how I wanted to end this tonight, just to thank you guys. And I know you're going to do the right thing, because I know you care about this city, and you really are good people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Khalif, Charlie Hess, then Teresa Spence.
Good evening. Oh, sorry. I'm Sarah Kalafian. I live in Lynchburg for 24 years. This is a full circle moment. Came in at the invitation of Chris Feraldi in 2021, I believe. There was a city surplus, but the city council voted to do nothing about it. So that was a bummer. So I'm standing here today asking for another chance. Please give back some of the money to the citizens of Lynchburg, because money in our pockets means Lynchburg grows. We will reinvest in Lynchburg. We will support our schools. We will get involved. We will have the time to do so. So money in our pockets is a good thing, especially the middle class, which is the bread and butter of every community. Please don't crush us between the two slices of bread. I support 0.89, because I would like to at least equalize the tax rate. I'm sorry, it's not $20 a month that we'll be paying extra each year. So thank you all for your hard work and for the opportunity to speak tonight. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Charlie Hess, then Teresa Spence.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We own a rental property in town, which we bought 5 years ago. In July 21, I received my new tax evaluation notice that went up 82%. I went from $1,600 a year to $3,200 a year in real estate taxes. I did have to raise rents. Didn't want to, but we had to find some money. And I realized a lot of that was because of a reassessment predicated upon our recent purchase of that property. I have no problem with that fundamentally. I just think that when we're talking about a surplus and we have legitimate efforts going on to keep rents in line against some of the competition, because this is an older property, they're building apartments everywhere as fast as they can put them up. And I realize I can maintain a lower rent price at that level. But anyway, I'm just seeking some relief. I also have a residence. We've been in the city in Ward 1 for 30 years. And we are having a conversation about moving out of the city, quite honestly, my wife and I. So appreciate the time, and we'll continue to encourage you to go into the 80-some cent range, let's put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the last name on our list is Teresa Spence.
Sorry. Well, I want to say first that I support the 89-cent rate. Keeping the 111 rate would actually be a tax raise, because we've all had our assessments raised. I want to mention, a lot of people don't understand that the money that is in the budget is not all the money that the city has. They don't understand that there is sort of a slush fund of quite a few $1 million, so that if our taxes are lowered, it's not exactly going to break the city. I guess the other thing that I want to say is that I have had a personal experience of waste that's kind of funny that I want to tell you about. I live on the backside of Diamond Hill, where Highway 29 is, where the Greenway is. And I've lived here 17 years, and usually that Greenway is mowed 3 or 4 times a year. Now, during the recession, that went down to 2 times a year, because the city said they were too poor to do it. This year, starting in May, they mowed every week. Every week, all of May and all of June, even though there was a drought and the grass was dying. And do you know why that is? Why I think that is? Because all the grants, the block grants, you're expected to spend all the money. And if you don't spend all that money, then you don't get as much the next time. So they had those things out there mowing every week using contractors, don't know whose friends they were, but they were wasting our money mowing every week grass that didn't need to be mowed because they knew that they wouldn't be able to ask for more money next year unless they used up all that money. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak whose name was not on the list? Okay.
I believe there were multiple lists.
The list for the proposed real property tax. There's 3 public hearings, so there's the proposed real estate tax, the water and sewer rates, the sewer rate only and the stormwater fee, and then the operating budget.
I believe the way they explained it, they just said there's 3 tables to sign up, so I thought I was signing up to speak on this issue.
Okay, so if you want to speak on this, you just get in line, please, and just go ahead, and as you approach the microphone, please state your name and your locality, please. Thank you. Just to get in a single file line. And
Good evening, City Council. My name is David Cooper. I'm a Garland Hill resident, former resident of Ward 2. Been a homeowner in Lynchburg since 2004. The president of our neighborhood association. Live in a historic home with restrictions on what we can do in our homes to keep it the character of our city. I'm a church leader and a self-employed business owner in the city. In my work, I work with households on managing their finances, and what I see in those conversations is that people are very aware of the tax rates between the city and the county. And those are conversations that people have, that I've had dozens of, and well, probably into the hundreds with my clients about the difference between the two. And I've had, in the 18 years of being a homeowner in Lynchburg, many, many friends who have moved into the county to pay lower taxes. And it's something that we would certainly consider if tax rates continue to go up in the city. And it's certainly, as someone else mentioned, far more than $200. I think that equalizing the tax rate or even lowering it is necessary. And I also want to speak a little bit about the idea of funding for children. It's a very emotionally appealing idea, but the way that some of that has been expressed, they're asking for almost an infinite amount. You can never say no to more money if the idea is it's supposedly going to help someone. We've raised 7 children, homeschooled them all, and I'm quite confident we have not spent $15,000 in entirety to accomplish that goal. My oldest daughter is now in college now, doing quite well. And so I don't think that $15,000 per student is necessary to get a quality education and success in life. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman and other constituents. I'm Sharon Simpson, and I'm from Lynchburg. I was raised here and educated here. I moved away, and I became a principal in Washington, D.C. I'm a retired educator. I moved back here in 2013 because I take care of my mom, but I wanted to help Lynchburg. And what concerns me now is that when I hear comments like, you know, you don't need more money for education. And Gage, I applaud you because you were in my head. Unless you've been in a school system, you cannot understand what goes on. I've worked in home schools, I've worked in church schools, all of that. When you put children in a classroom of 20, 25, 30, 35, the dynamics change. They need more money in the school. What I'm asking the council to do is respect the position of superintendent, because when a superintendent creates a budget, which she was asked to do, or which anyone was asked to do as a superintendent, that needs to go first before anything else. A child needs a great teacher 3 years in a row in order for them to sustain a better education. I don't think that our salaries are complementary to our educators, so we can't retain them. We can't compare apples to oranges. We can't compare Lynchburg to Bedford, to other counties, because there's no cookie cutter. And I've been there. And I just implore you to, when you look at how you decide, just, do a T-chart, do something that would benefit our children and our teachers. We're in a different time, and so we have to do different measures. We can't just go out here and do nothing, or we can't do something the same way expecting something different. Okay, and I just really appreciate you all. I appreciate this time, and you have my support, but I need yours too. Thank you.
City Council members, thank you for letting us speak this evening. My name is Nate Rock, and I live in the Fort Hill area, in particularly Ward 3. I'm coming before you to voice my support for the proposed reduction to the current property tax rate, in specific, the reduction to the 89 cents per hundred. As we've either heard or potentially will hear, there are many logical and practical reasons for lowering the rate, the greatest of which, I believe, is that lowering it will benefit both the city and the citizens. However, my voice this evening is not coming to render logical argumentation, but to simply make a sincere request and plea. Making ends meet this past year has been challenging and oftentimes tough. Thankfully, the Lord has been good. However, as things sit, these challenges and tough times are not leaving soon. With the current new property assessments, the increase of cost of living will only add to the challenges, even with a 5-cent reduction as the city manager proposes. My family and I have had to trim and tighten, and I ask that you do the same. Lowering the rate will greatly aid myself, my family, and all of us present and absent in being able to continue our journey and fight through these times of lean. Please be our defenders, please guard us, and please be willing to fight alongside us by entering into the realm of appropriate and necessary trimming. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilman, good evening. I used to be afraid to tell people I was from Lynchburg. I was born July 4th, 1981, Virginia Baptist Hospital. That day I became a citizen of this city founded by John Lynch, 1786. I often thought about how my ancestors were exploited at places like Point of Honor, not too far from that very same hospital. I used to be afraid to tell people that I was from Lynchburg. Our father was employed downtown before moving on to become a business owner himself. My older sister and I spent a lot of time at the library inside of City Hall and on Memorial Avenue. The librarians and other staff added searching books and helping us to read always gave us good advice. At times we would run errands downtown. The City Hall staff was always helpful. I used to be afraid to tell people that I was from Lynchburg. While attending Lincoln Middle, one of the custodians used to look out for me. He knew my grandmother, who retired from Lynchburg City Schools after 30+ years of service. I used to be afraid to tell people that I was from Lynchburg. My father graduated from Dunbar High School in 1970. I had the opportunity to be taught by a group of diverse educators. While I attended EC Glass, I was guided by great teachers like Jennifer Petticolas, Coach Chip Berry, and many others. I remember in 1999, I learned a valuable lesson from our school resource officer, Officer Zudema. I used to be afraid to tell people I was from Lynchburg. March 2020, the first year of the pandemic, I was the victim of a police chase. The scene was total destruction. I watched officers spring into action. One of the very first officers on the scene was Chief Ryan Zudema. Lynchburg Fire Department arrived fast and rendered excellent service. I used to be afraid to tell people that I was from Lynchburg, but I am no longer afraid. I have seen the process that goes into how citizens receive their tap water. I have seen on Tuesdays in Rivermont how employees hustle from street to street collecting neighborhood disposables. I enjoy the interactions with the Parks and Rec staff when I pick up our children from Daniels Hill Center. I am thankful for the city that provides a place for children in school and parents to work while we are at work, and it's not too far from Point of Honor. But I am no longer afraid to tell people that I am from Lynchburg, as we have a city council that makes up a diverse group of people: financial advisors, healthcare leaders, businessmen and women, real estate investors, legislators, all make up our leadership. Oh no, I'm no longer afraid to tell people that I am from Lynchburg. But without love and the financial means that we need to give our public servants, they can no longer give love to us. So please, do not let me be afraid of Lynchburg ever again. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, my name is Dan Pence, and I live in Ward 2. I'll be brief. Looking on my phone at a copy of a campaign flyer that the Republican Party ran on. And on this it says, top priorities: support public safety, lower taxes, educational opportunity, improve city services, make Lynchburg the best place to live, work, and play. And so I'm believing that you all are people of integrity. I know we've talked about integrity in the council, that you will do the things that you say. And so this is a flyer you ran on, and I'm encouraging you to complete that by doing what you've promised to do. I support an 89 or lower tax rate, and I appreciate that you'll be able to manage to do that and still deliver your other promises. You have to do things, in my view, one step at a time. So the thing that's on the ballot right now is, your ballot, is to adjust the tax rates for the citizens of Lynchburg. You can approach the other pieces as they come up, and I have confidence that you'll be able to do that as per your promises. Thank you.
My name is Sharon Ream. I'm in Ward 3, and I want to speak about the difference between benevolence and requiring people to pay things. I love Lynchburg. I will just say this, and I think all of us do. And I think the best thing about Lynchburg is there's a lot of involvement in community. And one of the things we haven't been talking about here is some options that you can use the nonprofits and different places. There are a lot of after-school programs, a lot of things that nonprofits do that are options that you could tap into that wouldn't have to use city money, that could be used for helping students, and there's a lot of volunteer kind of things that are going on. If you looked into those kinds of things that would benefit the community as well, that are already out there, and look into using those nonprofit types of things to work together as a community instead of using the city funds or using funds that are required by individuals to have to give their money to rather than having to be forced to have that. There's a difference between benevolence and giving your money out of your own heart and out of your own pocket, and tax money that's required to be given or that you have to give to be given and distributed. There's a difference between that. And so what I'm asking is that we look at other options rather than just tax ideas to help all of the different things that we can do, and volunteering and that kind of thing. Encouraging those kinds of things instead of having to use public funds for that. The second thing I wanted to speak about was I'm a former teacher. My husband has been a teacher in the public schools for 31 years. I was a public school teacher for 7 years. I've done both. I want to say this without my experience, and I have not been in Lynchburg schools, okay? And I want to encourage that we have the best thing and being able to give the best we can to our students. At the same time, I also know how schools have a tendency to work. There's a tendency to fluff the top with all the administrative money and getting a lot of administrators in there with a lot of high salaries, and they don't do a lot. And then the teachers end up stuck with all the lower salaries. And what I'm asking, and then also, I'll just be honest, a lot of teachers, there's a tendency to continue to want more. And I'm not saying that we need that I do believe that we need money for our students, and we need to be able to do that. I just think we can also look at both, be able to take our schools and also take our ability to use a paring down of the monies to do that. So, thank you.
My name is David Musselman, and I just want to say I'm a recovering Yankee. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, which is also known as the Mistake on the Lake. We had the unusual notoriety of having a river that ran through the middle of town that was so polluted that it caught fire at one point. People ask me down here where I'm from, and I say I'm from Yankee land, and I can't help where I was born, but I got down here as quick as I could. I love the culture here. I love the people here. I did a little bit of Ubering to make a few shekels on the side, and it didn't matter what part of town I went to, what might be considered the most dangerous places in town. The kids were yes ma'am, yes sir, no sir. I'm just polite as they could be, and that's not what I grew up with in Cleveland. So I'm thrilled with this city, but I just want to say one thing, and there's so many things that I could say that have already been said by people and done a better job than I could. But the gentleman just before, the lady that was before me, mentioned the brochures that were given out by the people who ran. As you know, the complexion of this council has changed pretty radically recently, and it's become more of a two-party system, and we worked hard to get people in there that would affect the kind of change that we believe in, and we just want to see that change. I'm 72 years old, and throughout my life, one of the biggest complaints people have always had about elected officials is that people running for office always make promises that if elected, they will fight corruption, lower taxes, work to affect change that will benefit their constituents. We knock on doors, make phone calls, pass out flyers to get them elected, and within 5 minutes of arriving in office, they are co-opted by the opposition, and we watch everything that we fought for go down the drain. It's real clear what we wanted when we got these new people in office. And I think we're going to be very, very disappointed as a community if we don't see them hold to those promises. And one of them was lower taxes. Thank you. Good job.
Good evening, our honorable city mayors, or city council, excuse me. My name is Cindy Ferguson, and I live in Ward 2. I have been a resident of Lynchburg for 32 years. I'm someone who has benefited from the services of our city, as well as being the director for the Center for Community Engagement at the University of Lynchburg. When I moved to Lynchburg in 1991, I was a 22-year-old who was very conservative through and through and felt my church should be helping more people instead of our city. However, the older I get and the more I learn, the more that I can't unlearn. I see many in our community in need of healthy foods, safe and affordable housing, physical and mental health care, reliable transportation, education, and safe, affirming, supportive spaces. While I believe that we need to be fiscally responsible and good stewards of our resources, we also must be socially responsible in meeting the needs of all of our citizens, especially the most vulnerable. Although I have paid taxes in this community since 1991, it has only been in the last 15 to 20 years that I've been able to have a better understanding of where that funding goes and how many of my neighbors and my community benefit from the services that our city provides. My children have had amazing bus drivers, teachers, coaches, and administrators in our city schools. The opportunities that have been afforded to my children have helped them to grow to be the stellar and amazing people that they are. They have had amazing relationships, and they have learned to be their authentic selves, to be the people that God created them to be. My children were well prepared for post-secondary education and futures that are filled with continued hopes and dreams. However, they were not in school system during COVID, where our schools tried their best to transition our children to learning in many different ways. It will be years before our children, no matter their socioeconomic status, are caught up. But this is not because our schools didn't try and continue to try to meet the needs of our children and closing those education gaps. We cannot meet these needs by cutting the school budget and expect our children to thrive, expect these community members who serve our children to thrive. Also, my daughters graduated from EC Glass High School and my son graduated from Liberty Christian Academy. He attended 3 years there because I was a school counselor there and it was a requirement of my job. These experiences are really different from each other and cannot and should not be compared because not all of our community has these choices.
Hello. Hello, my name is Cassandra Taylor. I don't have anything prepared because I hadn't planned to speak, but in listening to everyone, this is a great opportunity because we typically, as citizens, I don't feel like I really have an opportunity to speak to the federal government, but I can speak to my city government. And this is my first opportunity, and I just want to say that I have been blessed to live in a neighborhood where, you know, there's not a lot of want. And I was really kind of taken aback when COVID hit because, you know, school buses would come in and I said, well, you know, schools are out. What are the school buses coming in here for? And they would come in every day and they'd stop and I'd see the little girls come out across the street and come to the bus and they would get a box and I'm like, what is going on here? And come to find out, you know, that they're delivering food and our neighborhood didn't need that. And so I was just kind of taken aback. So I've seen firsthand that there can be some cuts and there can be some redirection that goes on with the school system. And I tend to, you know, in kind of the middle, we're kind of sandwiched in between where one group, you know, we're kind of in the middle and we don't tend to get a break. You know, we don't tend to get some of the rebates that the government gives out, but we're kind of right in the middle and we need a break. The middleman needs a break. And so I'm asking that you would reduce taxes because we need a break. Everything has gone up. I'm not going to reiterate what everyone else has said, but we need a break. Thank you.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council, I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am Molly McLennan, 712 Riverside Drive. My husband and I grew up in Iowa and Illinois, but we moved here in 1965 with our 3 small daughters, who were all well educated in the Lynchburg public schools. Now, however, they couldn't wait to leave lunch bag, as they called it. But now they come back and they can't believe what they see. They see a vibrant downtown with places to eat, things to do, even people living downtown. They enjoy biking and walking on our many trails. The parks, including new Riverfront Park downtown and Ivy Park off 221. One husband asked our daughter, now, why did you want to leave here? This is a good place to live. Our thanks are to previous city councils for their vision, support, and funding, and we hope that you will continue. We have a new Heritage High School, Sandusky Middle School. We need to fund our schools. Good schools are important for our citizens and our city. I'm also proud of our city's commitment to the many neighborhoods that we have. New sidewalks and enhanced trail entrance in Tinbridge Hill. Good things happening in Triana. Plans for Deerington neighborhood, including improvements in Jefferson Park and improved housing opportunities. As you know, we have many volunteers in Lynchburg at Daily Bread, Meals on Wheels, Parkview Mission. We have programs for kids, Jubilee Family Development, Bike and Read programs from One Community, One Voice, Lazy Sports Initiative, Food for Thought, Beacon of Hope, everybody who picks up litter. But volunteers need the city to do their part too. We can't do it all. We need the city to do their part. I have heard city council members ask the city manager to prepare a budget that returns money to the people of Lynchburg and that also lowers the tax rate, and he did that. Money is returned by eliminating the car tax and charges for trash pickup. The tax rate has been lowered while creating a budget that keeps us moving forward, keeping Lynchburg a great place to live, work, and play. Please adopt the 2024 budget. I don't want to have to tell my children that we slid backwards. Thank you.